Welcome in. Thank you for joining us on this Friday Junior, Friday Eve, Thursday afternoon. Again, thank you. We have a lot to get to this afternoon, but we want to start with this. And let me start with this. Hey, Carlene, how are you doing?
Hi, Nick. How are you?
Oh, well. Yeah, that's usually a show tradition to ask Carlene, whoever the producer is, how they're doing.
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing well. I have to ask before we strap in and go full steam ahead.
Yeah.
News content.
News.
A lot happening.
Weather. All of the things.
All the things. Speaking of weather, meteorologist Brittany Van Voorhees is here.
Hey, Nick.
Happy belated birthday, Brittany. I said it on TV, and now I'm saying it through our stream.
You're just jealous that Jane got to sing to me yesterday.
I was there too, kind of singing in the background.
No. I remember I told you Jane and Carlene sung on the stream.
Yeah. You weren't there.
Yeah, you were a little bit jealous about that.
What? This was during the afternoon stream?
Yeah.
You did an afternoon hit
I
yesterday?
told you this yesterday.
I didn't think that was real.
You didn't connect the dots. You didn't make the news make sense.
We sang Stevie Wonder's Happy Birthday to her on stream. You missed that.
Y'all didn't ask me.
You were, I don't know where you were, to be quite honest.
Yeah, what are you doing on the days that you're not doing the stream? Like twiddling your thumbs?
I did the stream. I did the morning stream.
You did.
See?
You did
I'm
the
just
morning
kidding.
stream.
See how they do it? They leave me out. Anyway, let's talk about the weather.
Yes.
Because we did this. Hold on, I don't know if they can see me. We did that.
And we're going to keep doing that.
We're going to keep doing
We're going to keep doing
I
that.
don't love that. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So this is the thing. It is normal for March to see big swings, but it does feel like our swings have been a little bit more aggressive than normal.
Yeah.
We don't normally see temperatures get to multiple days close to records. We don't normally have multiple days of 80-degree temperatures plus. I know some people would like it to be that warm in March, but it's not normally. Normally our high's in the 60s.
Carlene would like it to be
I like
that.
warm.
Yeah.
So yesterday when our high reached, I think it was 60, it was the official high, that is closer to normal. It's 66, 67. So if you were outside on Wednesday, that's what it's normally supposed to be. But today, getting close to 80. Tomorrow, we're hitting records across a lot of the central portion of the Carolinas. So let's start talking about the good. We have a lot of sunshine out there today. Live pictures here from Monroe, Dallas, over toward Kannapolis, the Queen City. It is a big weekend, of course, in the Charlotte area for baseball because the Knights have their opening night on Friday and, of course, opening weekend as well. Another look here, you can see there downtown Monroe looks fantastic. Today, we're warming back into the 80s, as I just mentioned. So temperatures close to about 10 degrees warmer than yesterday. Close to 90 degrees on Friday. I do think we're going to be just below that 90-degree mark, but hey, Sunday almost got there. We got to 87, and it'll be a similar forecast for tomorrow. We're warming up very quickly. It's already 70 degrees, so again, temperatures currently are already warmer than where we were for the highest temperature we had yesterday. Now, something that you might notice today is the wind is still a bit breezy at times, but not quite as high as the last few days, especially Monday. Carlene knows we were out and about. That wind was rocking. That is what contributed to our elevated fire danger risk for most of the week. We are still under very high conditions, but the previous days of the week we were under extreme conditions. So think if we were 5 out of 5 before, we're like a 4 out of 5 now. So the breeze, the dry conditions we've seen are still going to impact that fire danger, but it's not going to be as bad as it has been. So there's yesterday. There's today, 15-degree warm-up. I guess we actually only got to 66. That's exactly where we should have been, so there you go. Tomorrow, 88's the current forecast.
Love it.
Now, normally when you get close to the end of March, your records are closer to 90. So I'm actually really surprised that our record for March 27th is only 85, but alas, that's what the record is.
Only.
Diamond in the rough. Well, I say only because most days this late in the March, it's like 90. So it's harder to hit a record.
Oh, that's fair.
But not March 27th. So 85 is the previous record. So I think we're going to blow past that. Getting close to 88 degrees is more of the story. Not a lot of rain to contend with the next few days. And I've said this before. I've said it twice. I've said it 3 times. I know it's nice when we don't have rain on a weekend, especially a weekend where there is a lot of activity going on. So I don't think that this rain we see is going to be very impactful, but please remain reminding folks that we need the rain. So we can't go without it forever. Here's today, we're dry. Friday's when we start to see the cold front roll in. This is what's going to cool us down heading into the weekend. This front is arriving much later on in the evening, so really impacting the mountains between about 5 to 8 p.m. We won't see rain in Charlotte until closer to 9 to 10. So it is Friday night. If you're going to be out and about, there will be a few showers around, again, especially after 9 p.m., so well after sunset, which is a bit abnormal just based on the timing of the cold front. Not expecting a lot of rain and storm activity to become strong, but there could be a few brief strikes of lightning, thunder, a little bit of that action. Most of this wraps up by 2 a.m. and then we are clear but much cooler for the rest of the weekend. Not a lot of rain to contend with, as I mentioned, over the next 7 days. This is the best we're going to do. And I know I mentioned this on the stream yesterday with Carlene and Jane, but what has been a concerning pattern from a meteorology, climatology perspective is that we have seen 7 to 10 day forecast outlooks where it looked like we were going to get better rain chances, and then they kind of pull back slowly over time. And that's kind of what Friday looked like. If you were talking to me last Friday, I would have told you, oh, I think we're going to get a pretty good chance of rain. Well, now it's like 20%. So with that being said, when we look at this long range pattern, trying to be a little bit cautiously optimistic that we will see better rain chances heading into April. I'm hoping that the April showers bring May flowers will come alive this year, because the drought, it's Thursday. New drought update continues to worsen. I rolled this back to 60 days ago just so we could have a perspective. We were already under a moderate to severe drought for most of the Carolinas already this time 2 months ago. Okay, so drier than normal, which is that little sliver on the eastern side of the Carolinas. If you look over toward Wilmington, everyone else was in moderate to severe drought. In my 5 years of working here almost, the worst we have been in is a severe drought. I know we've said this a few times. So the last time we were in an extreme drought was back on December. Well, I guess extreme drought for most of the area was December 2007. So then about a month ago, that extreme drought, I know we started to see that creep back in. This was February, so about 30 days ago. And this is it today. There's a little bit of improvement to the upstate of South Carolina, but you can see extreme drought now starting to bubble up on the southern tip of South Carolina. We see that same area on the western side there of the upstate, closer to Clemson, if you're driving down toward Greenville. And then again, you can see it expanding in the Charlotte area. That's eastern Monroe over toward, these counties are so hard to see. So most of Monroe, in areas east in Union County, creeping into Anson County. You can see most of Cabarrus County, eastern side of Mecklenburg, and now into parts there of Stanley County. And then there's still a little sliver there east of Raleigh. So the only improvement we've had is down toward Columbia. So they've gotten a lot of storms the past few weeks. So glad for them. Unfortunately, the more this drought continues to expand, the worse it's going to be if we don't get rain in the long term. I was telling this to our lovely friend and assistant news director, Spencer, yesterday, but the reason why the drought, the closer we get to late spring and early summer, is concerning is because when we look at the U.S. Drought Monitor, the people at the Drought Mitigation Center who do this, they don't just look at lack of rainfall. It's lack of rainfall, it's soil moisture. So it's based on where we should be, but it's also based on the time of year. So for example, a drought in summer is a way bigger deal than a drought in winter, right? Because nothing is growing, a lot of these plants don't need water during the winter. We're used to having less water. So when you get into spring, the growing season is supposed to be kicking off when we get closer to summer. That's where the drought starts to get more concerning. It is normal for us to start to get into drier than normal conditions late in the year, November, December, early. It's having such a bad drought to kick off 2026 that has been really exceptionally bad, and the fact that we just haven't had any good big storms. And I will remind folks that not just the drought, but also dryness and lack of widespread rain is also making the pollen levels pretty bad. I know we've had a few stories on this already, but the biggest reason this year, kickoff to pollen season, everything just kind of pollinated at the same time due to a very cold end of February and a quick warm up into the month of March. And so with the lack of rain, we're not getting that good soaking to kind of wash some of the pollen away. When we've had rain, it's been very isolated storms, which we know kicks things up and makes it worse because of the isolated nature of the rain and the fact that the winds start to pick up. So I would expect this weekend to be another one where you're sniffling, sneezing, and if you're noticing a lot of sinus pressure and you don't have allergies, it's probably the pressure change from the big cold front. So 88 degrees tomorrow, near 60 on Saturday, so an almost 30-degree temperature drop. We will see a chance for some patchy frost Sunday morning, but temperatures are warming back up to the upper 80s by this time next week. So again, roller coaster ride, normal. However, it does feel like this year has been a little bit, higher highs and lower lows.
Ooh, man, Saturday morning is just going to feel like a
Chilly Willy.
shot.
Well,
to
45
system.
Saturday morning. It's Sunday morning. Well, 37.
Still, even Saturday, 45 is going to feel coming from like 88.
We were in the 40s earlier this week, and that's when the mornings that you were probably complaining
But
about. that it was
even
too cold.
then, it was kind of, that was a little brutal.
That's what I'm saying. It's compare. Yeah, it's like a few weeks ago we were in the 20s and we were happy because like we had a 10-degree low,
Yeah.
and people are like, "Heck yeah, 28, great!" And now it's brutal, yeah, because we've
Just
already hit the upper 80s multiple
gotta
times.
prepare my body a bit. All right.
So that's what I'm here for, Nick, to prepare your body for the cold.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. It's a late birthday gift.
I'm always, well, I guess I'm giving you a birthday gift 365 days of the year. But yes. Anything for you, Nicholas?
Brittany Van Voorhees, thank you for joining us. And
Brittany.
you can catch Brittany at 4 doing traffic. Also, I believe you were at 5 or 6, updating us on the drought monitor as well.
Who knows?
She's she's around, folks. She's around.
Yeah. I know I'm there. I don't know when.
You should just
but I'll
keep
be
us
here.
on, then you'll eventually get to Brittany.
Yeah, man,
Right?
that works. We can do that.
Yeah,
Y'all
for
can do
sure.
that. Brittany, thank you. Enjoy
Thank
your
you.
Crocs. Let's take a quick break. We'll be back here in just 2 minutes here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. Welcome back here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturtevant. We want to go to Grapevine, Texas. We're happening right now. Conservatives are gathering for CPAC, and this is one of their largest annual gatherings. And this comes at a big political moment for President Donald Trump, with an open division on the right over the war in Iran. I'm reading a bit of this from AP News. And also, we are expected to hear from the Republican nominee for Senate here in North Carolina, Michael Whatley. He's expected to speak around 1 o'clock, so we'll keep an eye out for that. But in the meantime, let's take a listen in.
And they literally took elected officials and went to the county courthouse and tried to find dirt on me and other people in our community. What they wanted to do is ruin anybody that was trying to stop them. And it's scary, you know, and so we were trying to get people to stand up, and at the same time they're attacking me so hard that people were scared to stand up at first, but they realized that we were going to keep fighting, so they finally started standing behind us. And now our whole community, there's over 3,000 people there, and we've probably got about 8,000 people behind us that are, and we've you know, got these guys as well. So.
Yeah.
So in our own country, this Chinese company thought that it could intimidate the people of Green Charter Township, Michigan.
Right. The thing that's scary and what we want to warn people about is never to let these people into your communities. They got in, and now we're facing close to $1 million legal battle. And we're a community of 3,000 people. We started this fight with just us donating money. Everybody could. We gave as much as we could. And now we're stuck with this huge legal battle because Chuck Thielen, the vice president of Goshen, said repeatedly, if we're not wanted, we'll leave. Well, we proved that they weren't wanted when we did our surveys. Over 95% of the people didn't want Goshen. So we knew we were on the right path. But now they're leaving, but they're taking us to federal court. And we're getting sued, and there's no end in sight. They just keep coming at us. And I'm so scared for other communities that they're going to have to face the same thing, because they're trying to make an example out of us to show that they can bankrupt us. That way, you know, no one else will stick up for themselves. But we're going to fight back. You know, we've got a lot of plans, so.
Jeannie Ives, you've been leading the effort in Illinois. She's fresh from the battle. Now the struggle is in your community. Tell us what you guys are doing.
Well, Goshen did a two-part deal. First of all, they wanted a manufacturing plant up in Michigan, and then they wanted an assembly battery plant in Manteno. And so this was, again, part of the big green energy scam stuff that both Whitmer and Governor Pritzker are all in on. And so Governor Pritzker, this is the type of business that he wants to attract. And by the way, there's zero private job growth in the state of Illinois. The only job growth you get is when you incentivize with taxpayer money these companies to come in. And so he promised Goshen $536 million to start an assembly battery plant in Illinois. And then he backed that up with like all sorts of property tax deals and other incentives as well. And so nobody knew about this until there was a big announcement in September of 23. And that's when the local people found out about it. And immediately they started to organize against it. I'm more at the state level looking at this and saying, my son is serving in the Navy, and you're giving the #1 adversary of America, you're giving them $500 million to compete against us. This is insane. And so I started to help take up the fight with these folks, but really Jillian Rojas is a member of the Concerned Citizens of Manteno, which immediately organized against this Goshen plant in Manteno, a small city of 9,000 people. And so essentially it all started in a parking lot, really, and started saying, hey, we got to get to this community meeting, and I'll let Jillian pick up the story from there.
Yeah, thank you for having us here today to share our No Goshen, Illinois story. And so our mayor had signed some non-disclosure agreements under Project Unity and gone around to the different taxing bodies to secure $2 million in tax incentives, which would benefit Goshen. Initially, we started hearing about Project Unity. Then we heard that a lithium battery manufacturing Goshen, who is owned by High Goshen, was coming to our town. And when our governor came to town to make the announcement, that was when we linked Goshen and Project Unity together. And we knew at this point that we had to form a group of people, and we formed the Concerned Citizens of Manteno, and we stood together to keep the community informed about our lawsuit that we have filed against this company. And so we're working together to keep the community informed. It's a grassroots effort. We do not want this CCP-affiliated company in our town producing these lithium batteries because they are very dangerous, not only to the local community, but to our water, to our national security. So we really are in this effort together to help to spread the word and to let people know that even if you are just a grassroots person, you can make an impact on your community. You can get together as a group of people and say, we do not accept this. We do not accept you giving $125 million to Goshen, $530 in tax incentives at a local level. It's just, why are we giving this money to an adversary? Why aren't we keeping it here for the American people?
Yeah, so, I mean, but it's really important to point out, when Jillian talks about $125 million, I'm talking about the fact that Governor Pritzker literally cut them a check for $125 million after he had approved this project, and they had this huge rollout with every Democrat leader you can imagine in the state of Illinois, with the head of ComEd there, with the head of Nicor Gas promising them brand new transmission lines, brand new gas piping, which, by the way, they want to get rid of in the state of Illinois, completely get rid of coal and natural gas and oil. They want to get rid of it, yet they are touting the fact that we're going to build Goshen, a Chinese communist-backed company, an EV battery plant, all this new infrastructure. And the $125 million that he wrote him a check for was used for a land grab around the Goshen plant and used, actually, because money's fungible, used to actually defend against the lawsuit that the community started up against them. They're using our own tax money to try and put us out of business, to tell us to sit down and shut up. So
yeah, they've purchased over 231 acres of our surrounding farmland under a variety of LLCs. And members of our team have broke down these LLCs and linked all of their purchases. And you can check out more information on that at GoshenLandGrab.com, because we truly feel that behind the scenes, all these LLCs are linked to different CCP affiliated companies.
And ours goes right along with that same story. Governor Whitmer gave $715 million to Goshen. We can't get our roads fixed, yet all our tax dollars are going to fund a CCP-backed company. We are just disgusted by it. And the fact that we couldn't even get our environmentalists to help us. I contacted 38 different environmental groups in Michigan to get help because we're within a mile of the Muskegon River, which will dump right into the Great Lakes. Muskegon Watershed wouldn't help us, the Great Lakes Watershed wouldn't help us, Ducks Unlimited, you name it. Finally, I got so angry, I'm like, why will not anybody help us? And then off the table or whatever, they called me and said, we can't because our funding will get cut by Whitmer if we do help you. I said, so you're an environmental group, but you won't help save our environment? This is crazy, you know?
Yeah. Our plant sits 10 miles from the Kankakee, Illinois River, which is one of the cleanest rivers in the state of Illinois and in the country. And we don't even know how they're going to be filtering the water in this facility. So what's going to happen when the tables are poisoned and eventually leached into the Kankakee River, which eventually will run to the Mississippi River? So it's not just an Illinois problem, it's a USA problem. Could you imagine the Mississippi River polluted with lithium iron phosphate, synthetic graphite? I mean, what are we doing to our communities?
Well, and lithium is a forever chemical. It doesn't stop. So it's going to continue killing all the time, but they didn't care. Where we are at, we're right across the street from where the Goshen building was going, and there's a certified trout stream on my property. And they didn't care. It would be giving lithium dust every time they unloaded their semis, and nobody cared. And it's just very frustrating to see that you don't have any support from your state. And it's like the people have to stand up. And what we're here just to try to get people to understand that you've got to have a voice. You might be standing alone for a minute, but as soon as people realize what's going on and you tell them the truth, they're going to back you up. And that's exactly what our community did. And I'm sure that's what you guys, we all got connected as well because of this fight. And when you have numbers, there's a great thing when you can bring people together to fight these type of companies.
But we appreciate Gordon Chang getting in the fight with us. When I had Gordon on my radio show a few different times, and he's just he's written about Goshen. He's taken an interest in Goshen. He's got some national attention, but we've gotten no local media attention on this at all, which is shameful. And in Illinois, where we're in the super minority as Republicans, and then also there's all these other issues to fight. This issue gets left behind, but it's literally, we are taking on big government and big Chinese all at the same time in defense of what we see as our national security interest too. The last thing you want is them building grid scale batteries, which, by the way, is what happened. When they shut down the plant in Michigan from Goshen, which was supposed to be the manufacturing plant, and the Illinois plant was only supposed to be battery assembly. What they did is they moved the manufacturing to Illinois. And Governor Pritzker is super favorable to this type of stuff. In fact, just a few months ago, he passed legislation saying that they're going to spend $8 billion putting in grid scale batteries, which is a total boondoggle. And now, so but Goshen is shifting from building EV batteries for like Rivian, which is just down the street in Normal, Illinois, to now building grid scale batteries for his green energy fantasies of Governor Pritzker. So this is what's going on. They're moving the goalposts as the market changes, but they found a favorable place in the state of Illinois. I want to give a shout out, though, to both Congressman Darren LaHood and Congressman Molinar, because they did have the No Goshen Act, and they put provisions of the No Goshen Act into the One Big Beautiful Bill, and that basically takes away federal credits for these green energy scams, which is good because obviously Goshen was counting on $7 billion of all of our tax money at the federal level. That looks like it's getting shut down, but yet the state incentives are so powerful in Illinois that they're continuing to fight us in court.
Jillian, we only have a few minutes left. What would you like to tell the American people?
I would just like to say, please remember that you can fight as a grassroots activist. We are standing up to a Chinese affiliated company, and you can check out more information about us at nogoshen-illinois.com. We also want people to be aware of the broader concern that this Goshen facility sits 20 minutes from the Kankakee, Illinois Army Aviation Recruitment Facility, and it also sits 90 miles from the Great Lakes Naval Base in Illinois. So we just want to keep spreading the word. We could really use some help with our lawsuit. If people want to check us out, we would love to share more information. And we really thank you for your time, for having us here today.
Lori?
I as well wanted to put a few shout outs to John Molinar helped us immensely, as did Pete Hoekstra and Joe Sella, Lana Tice. We've had a lot of political help, and we're very thrilled for that. A lot of this is national security as well. I live in Big Rapids, Michigan, which is right by Ferris State University. Had no idea that there was a cybersecurity program there, but the Chinese nationalists knew. And that's all they cared about, was seeing that building and going to school there or whatever. But that is such a breach of our top secrets. And it's like, why are they doing this?
All right, so right now you're watching live there, Grapevine, Texas, CPAC USA 2026 conference underway there. We're expected to hear from Republican nominee for U.S. Senate here in North Carolina, Michael Whatley, in just moments. We're going to come back out here and we're going to take a quick break. We'll be back here in just 2 minutes here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. Welcome back here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturdivant. All right, so we got a check of the forecast about 30 minutes ago from meteorologist Brittany Van Voorhees. She updated us on the drought monitor, and I want to read you just part of this from North Carolina Forest Service, and it reads, this is on Facebook. With current conditions, it only takes a spark to start a wildfire. That spark could come from equipment, a burn pile, a vehicle, or improperly discarded smoking materials. Look, it is dry. Although the weather is warm and it's beautiful, it is dry. We haven't had rain in quite some time. And even the rain that's expected to hit the state, not necessarily this area, is not going to be enough to kind of lift us out of these drought conditions. Jesse Pierre here in studio. I'm used to seeing Jesse on a live shot on Zoom, so this is new for me, seeing Jesse here in studio. Thank you for joining us. You got a chance to speak with North Carolina Forest Service, also officials in Gaston County, right?
Yes, I did. And so fire officials, like you mentioned, it is dry weather right now, but it's also really windy. And so you have the perfect conditions for, like you mentioned, something gets ignited to create a wildfire or for something to spread pretty quickly. And so the North Carolina Forest Service says that in general, there's not a state issued burn ban right now. However, they're really urging folks not to burn anything right now. And I did ask him, what are the things that are the biggest, culprit for fires or wildfires and et cetera. He said 99% of those fires are caused by human activity. The majority of nearly half is because of debris being burned. So folks burning things in their yards and so forth. He said the biggest thing is when you are burning things in your yard, leaves or whatever vegetation, et cetera, you want to make sure you keep your eye on it. He says a lot of folks, they're like, oh, this is burning a little slow. Let me go mow my lawn. And then, wind picks up and then you have a whole situation. And then you have a full situation. So he says if you are going to burn, even though it's not recommended that you do right now, that you please pay attention to it. He also talked about different things like campfires being another one, hot coal not being discarded properly. And then I didn't even know this, but like a lot of equipment, lawnmowers, saws, and things like that get really hot can, or if they're not properly attached in the back of your car or they hit something, that can also spark.
Really? Oh, wow.
That can also create a spark. So there's a lot of different things that are happening, but the biggest things are really those burns in people's yards and etc. And so right now, again, you still want to, they recommend that you definitely check with your local fire departments or county and so forth to see if there's any type of, not warnings, but bans or anything like that locally. As of right now, there's not one in the state level. But, you just got to be careful because, wildfires can cause a lot of damage. I did a story a couple weeks ago, and the North Carolina Forest Service and the state fire marshal talked about how the state's not prepared. You know what I mean, for wildfires, and I think there was over 5,700 wildfires last year, and so these are things that take a lot of resources, people, funding, and so forth. And so, how can you help? Do the best you can to prevent any ignitions that can cause a wildfire.
Oh man, that's just the scary part because it could be just anything,
it could be any
spark.
Things. Yeah.
Oh man, we're so dry right now. Like I'm not usually the guy that loves the rain, but I'm like, man, we need some rain. We need something.
Rain. And even though, like you mentioned, there is a little bit of relief. It's we're in the spring wildfire season, and that I think, to my understanding, goes all the way through May. So there's a lot of different things during that time frame that could really happen.
Jesse, when can folks get your story? I have it here, unless I have it.
Are
here.
you quizzing her?
I am quizzing her.
They can find me at 4:00 and at 6:00.
She got the answer right, y'all.
I passed. I was gonna throw a joke in there, but we're live. We're out here on the stream. So
I appreciate that, Jesse Pierre. Jesse, thank you for your time. Thank you for stopping by. Let's take a quick break. We'll be back here in just 2 minutes here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. Welcome back here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturdivant. We want to go back to Grapevine, Texas, where some of the biggest names in the Republican Party are in the Dallas-Fort Worth area for the annual Conservative Political Action Conference. Let's take a listen in.
To fight for the conservative values that we believe in, and that is exactly what I've done since day one when I got elected in 2018. I was chairman of the Texas House Freedom Caucus. Now I'm in the Senate, always ranked as the top 1 or 2 most conservative members of the legislature. But it's more than that, right? This is a show me, don't tell me business. How tired are we of politicians telling us what they're going to do, right? They tell us all these things, they promise all these things. No, you got to show us the results. And I can show you those results. I took on the woke's left-wing gender ideology, defeated them, got the Save Women's Sports Law passed. Riley Gaines was a huge champion on that. Also, the strongest women's privacy law in America, which we know what that does. It kicks perverted men out of women's restrooms and locker rooms. I defeated the atheists and put prayer and the 10 Commandments back into our schools. Because children need to know God's law. And how many of y'all have heard of James Tallarico before, right? Yeah, he's a lunatic, by the way. And this guy claims to be a pastor. And he said it's unchristian and un-American to put the 10 Commandments in schools. So what was my response to that? I donated 10 Commandments posters to the schools in his district and gave them in his honor. He didn't like that very much. I've taken on our foreign adversaries in Austin and stopped China from buying our land, designated cartels as terrorist organizations, tripled border security, and am now taking on one of our most growing threats, one of our biggest threats that you've heard a lot about today, which is Islamification and Sharia law. This is incompatible with our republic because they don't think we deserve the right to exist.
All right, so that is the CPAC USA conference underway there in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. We want to go now to Connecticut, where the Reverend Al Sharpton is speaking. He is among the civil rights leaders that are attending the funeral service for a man killed by Hartford police. Let's take a listen in.
And I heard the story of what happened to Stevie. When they said they were scheduling the funeral, people on my national staff said there's less than 2 weeks from National Action Network's national convention. In fact, Kamala Harris announced today she's speaking, and that you can't go up to Connecticut to send a video. But then I thought about Pastor Bailey about 2.5 weeks ago. I did a eulogy at the funeral of my mentor, Reverend Jesse Jackson. And Reverend Jackson taught us that even when it's inconvenient, you got to stand up for those that no one else is standing. I wasn't raised or trained to do what is comfortable. The job of the ministers, the job of the leaders is not to be comfortable, but to give comfort to the uncomfortable. And if you want to be everybody's friend, then you ought not be in a leadership position. If you want to be popular with everybody, then you ought not stand behind this desk. Because Jesus was crucified for standing up to the powers that be. And you can't wear a cross if you're not willing to bear a cross. And if you don't believe that God can bring you through controversy, then you don't have enough faith left. You got to earn going to heaven. Everybody talking about I want to go to heaven in the morning. And you get there, everybody gonna have a testimony but you. God delivered the children of Israel. God delivered Moses. God brought across the Red Sea. What you gonna talk about if you ducked everything you were supposed to be there for? So we are here not just for Stevie and Audrey. We here because that's who we are. And we know that he could be my child, my brother. And that's why we're here. Let me say this, and I'll take a text and I'm going on. When I heard the story detailed, and nobody does better research and caution than Ben Crump. I didn't go to law school. I didn't go through none of all that. But as I said to the sister this morning, standing there in front of the press conference, something about this don't make sense. You don't need a law degree, Bishop Bailey, to make sense. The story they telling me is that Stevie didn't take his medicine. Audrey called 911, didn't call the police, called 911. The police come. She tells him he didn't take his medicine. He had the knife, they said, had knifed himself. 3 police was there moments, saying drop the knife, talking for minutes. And a 4th cop rose up and his second starts shooting. Now, first question I have is why he didn't judge the weigh the judgment of the first 3 cops. If they didn't start shooting, why did he come and start shooting? If they didn't feel threatened, how did he feel threatened? How did the police that were there for minutes try to talk to Stevie, but you decided you'd come and execute Stevie? That just don't make sense to me. Secondly, we've had 2 incidents in the last 8 days in the same city about mental health problems, all in our community. So I don't know, I've not looked at the books lately in Hartford, but is there a way you do mental health situations in other communities, but in our communities you come bang, bang, shoot them up? We know that Stevie had a problem, but I want to know what was the problem the officer had. And we came to let this family know that we did not just come today, we'll come back over and over again, because if you can shoot Stevie in cold blood, you can do it to one of our loved ones. This must be treated with justice. Audrey, if they thought all of these police, if they thought that all of these cameras would have been here, they'd have thought twice before they shot Stevie. They thought Bishop Bailey was going to open the doors of this great edifice. They'd have thought twice. If they'd have thought Ben Crump was coming, they would have thought twice. But that's the reason we came. God said to me, I was selling a young lady in the car, I don't understand, Rev Mal. You got a TV show, you got this, you got that. I don't understand. You famous, why would you go to stuff like this? I said, I got famous to go to stuff like this. Because I want to put a spotlight where you trying to hide. See, I don't know if you know my background, Audrey, but I grew up in the hood in Brooklyn, New York. And when Father left, we were on welfare. And we lived in the projects. And we had some, I know.
All right, so that is the Reverend Al Sharpton speaking there at a funeral service for a man killed by Hartford police. We want to go now to closer to home, to Maryland, Baltimore, Maryland, where happening right now. We are hearing from Governor Wes Moore. He is giving remarks there. We're expected to hear from the Lieutenant Governor and other elected officials for a commemoration press conference for the Key Bridge. Let's take a listen in.
This morning we remember 6 patriots. People who worked while we slept. People who at that moment were unaccounted for. And the only ask that their families had was never forget about our family members. To the families of the victims, I know there is no words that we can say that can take away your grief. Because the 6 victims of the Key Bridge collapse should be here right now. Drolian, Ronial, Castillo, Cabrera, Carlos, Daniel, Hernandez, Estrella, Alejandro, Hernandez, Fuentes, Miguel, Angel, Luna, González, José, Menor, López, Menor, Yacir, Suazo, Sandoval. All of them should be here now. But they're not gone from the hearts of all of us, and they're not gone from the hearts of all of those who love them. Viven en nuestros corazones. No pasa un día sin que pensamos en ustedes. Los vemos, estamos a su lado y aquí estaremos ahora y siempre. March 26th, 2024 is etched forever into the story of Maryland. But not just because of the horror of that morning. It's etched in our memories because of the heroism. It's etched in the memories that in the faces of one of the worst tragedies in our state's history, it was Marylanders who stepped up to serve, who were woken in the middle of the night, and were some of the first ones in the water, who were the ones who were making sure that people would stay off of the bridge. It's the firefighters who ran towards the danger before they even had a full understanding of what the danger even was. They just did it because people needed help. There was the private sector and the philanthropic groups who supported our people and who said, let us know how we can serve. It was the leaders at our local and our state and our federal levels who work not just around the clock, but who worked in partnership because that's what that moment required. There were no guarantees that we were going to be successful in the work that we were doing. The only thing we knew that morning was that we were now looking at a catastrophe that this state had never seen before. But we stayed together. We stayed focused. We never forgot about those who we were searching for and eventually lost. And we showed the country what it meant to be Maryland tough and Baltimore strong. We faced enormous obstacles of twisted steel, a river of uncertainty, livelihoods at risk. But the skeptics could not stop our people. When they said clearing the channel would take 11 months, Maryland got it done in 11 weeks. When the experts said that reaching a 70% design build could take 5 to 7 years, we got it done in 14 months. When the experts said that it could take years just to get permitting done, we got it done in months. And when forecasts showed job losses at the Port of Baltimore, port workers ended up handling a record number of containers in 2025 and actually added jobs. We remain committed to rebuilding the Francis Scott Key Bridge with intentionality, with speed, and with safety. And I will work with anybody to make sure that we see that happen. In January, I met with U.S. Secretary of Transportation Sean Duffy, and as Secretary Duffy has noted, this is the fastest moving large infrastructure project in the United States, and we plan on keeping it that way. The dolly struck the Key Bridge during my tenure. Yet, I plan on being the governor who cuts the ribbon to reopen the Francis Scott Key Bridge. At a time when too many people wonder whether building big and great things is still possible in our country, Maryland, once again, is going to lead the way and show what is possible. We will continue to recover, we will continue to rebuild, and we will continue to do it together. And we'll keep moving forward until a new Key Bridge arches over Baltimore's stunning skyline once again. May God watch over the victims. May God keep his eternal protection over them. May God keep these families of ones who are lost in his almighty hands. May the Lord continue to shine grace and comfort over our great state. And may this state continue to show the country what right looks like. I'm thankful for each and every one of you. And with that, I'll turn it over to my partner in the work, our Lieutenant Governor, Aruna Miller.
Thank you, Governor Moore. Good afternoon, everyone. They say that some days pass quietly and some days stay with us because they ask something of us. March 26, 2024 was one of those days. I will never forget the MDTA first responders who ran toward danger, the divers who entered dark, uncertain waters without hesitation, and everyone from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers to our elected leaders, local organizations, to the construction crews, and to so many others who showed up day after day determined to rebuild. And I remember Governor Moore, a steady hand and a compassionate leader, guiding our state through one of the most difficult moments in our state history. Governor, thank you for your leadership then and now. When I was in engineering school, I was taught that when you design roadways, bridges, and infrastructure, you don't design for the average day. You design for the day you hope will never come. But sometimes the worst day still comes. And on that day, families lost loved ones, men who came to work and never made it back home. Steel and concrete gave way, and our iconic Key Bridge collapsed. But watching how Marylanders met that moment, I learned something that no textbook can ever teach. That some things can never be engineered. The strength of a community that refuses to break. The human spirit, that you don't design. You witness it, you watch it rise, and you see it in the people. Today, 2 years after the tragic incident, we pause to remember those we lost. We stand with their families in grief and in love, and we honor the workers whose hands and hearts are rebuilding what was taken from us. We continue the work to rebuild. This will be Maryland's first cable-stayed bridge, over 2 miles long, designed higher, stronger, safer, with 230-foot clearings to support modern shipping. Crews are driving massive steel piles, some more than 200 feet long and 8 feet in diameter, deep into the riverbed to anchor the new bridge. Foundations are being built with tens and thousands of concrete, each footing the size of 2 basketball courts. And this project is advancing, as you heard from the governor, at a pace faster than any other bridge projects across the country. So yes, we will.
All right, so that is the commemoration ceremony underway there in Baltimore, Maryland for the Key Bridge. Let's come back out here in studio and let's go to break. We'll be back here in just 2 minutes here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. Welcome back here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturdivant. All right, let's talk a little bit of politics. So Charlotte City Council's budget season has officially begun. As they invest big in public safety and transit, there's a big question. We talked about it during the break. Will Charlotte increase property taxes? That is
The dramatic.
the dramatic sigh or gasp. Thank you. Is Julie Kay here covering all things politics? Julie, another great episode of Flashpoint. Make sure you tune in. Flashpoint, correct me if I'm wrong, Mondays 9 p.m.
Yes, avid Flashpoint watcher over here.
Yeah, look, hey, I'm one of the biggest fans. They do great work. Her and Ben Thompson. Let's talk about it. Property taxes. So we talk about public safety, we talk about transit, but property tax. I feel like it's kind of like a sleeper as far as issues and concerns.
Yes. Everyone, I think, pretty much if they had to raise their hand and vote would say, no, we don't want our taxes to increase. But when you think about it, our sales tax, we just voted to increase it in Mecklenburg County, we being, voters overall, not me specifically. I'm just saying that it was very narrow that it passed. It was very close, but it still passed. That was for transit projects. And so all these things we want to do, we talked about in the break, lofty goals that the city has. How are you going to pay for it? So Ben and I spoke with Dimple Ashmira. She's a councilwoman and chair of the budget committee. She is the one helping lead these discussions as we begin the very lengthy budget process. She is against a property tax increase. And so I think a lot of people will be relieved to hear that, especially as we have the sales tax increase going into effect in July. Again, that passed in November, but it hasn't actually happened yet. You haven't felt the impacts of it yet. But there are still a lot of really big things that they want to get done, and that's kind of the balancing act of it. Big thing, of course, is public safety. We have talked about this a million times. A lot of high-profile crimes in the last year or so since we had a last budget process. Of course, the murder of Irina Zarutska brought attention to public safety on public transit.
Last summer,
and it talked about we started talking more about CMPD and just police funding and resources in general. She brought up the point that CMPD right now is short about 300 officers, which we knew. But even retaining that talent has been an issue as well. So she's advocating for what CMPD has been asking for, a 10% salary increase and take-home vehicles to kind of incentivize more talent to not only come but stay in Charlotte, Mecklenburg County area. And so that's going to be a big discussion. I know that Chief Estelle Patterson has asked that already of the state government, who does not have a budget yet and so has not been able to fulfill that request. And then some council members were just in DC, and that was one of their asks as well from the federal government. If you get a chance to advocate for funding for Charlotte, this is what we want to see. That was one of their asks. So neither of those pushes have been successful yet, and so it kind of comes down to city budget, but balancing that with other goals like affordable housing and transportation, things like that. I mean, there's a lot to balance here.
Oh man, did Dimple Ashmira say why no increase in property? Oh, I guess why she's on that side of the fence.
Yeah, and things could still change. We haven't heard yet from the city manager on what that draft budget looks like, or other council members. But she's advocating for no increase because we have that sales tax already increasing in July, which again people haven't felt yet, and they're already, she says, struggling as it is. So another increase on top of that would, she's saying, just it's not the time to do that. Even with all these things we want to do, it's not the time to put families in a worse financial position. She even mentioned like gas prices. There are other issues that are unrelated to city, state, county governments that are causing a lot of financial strain on Charlotte families right now. And so she just said that this is really not the time, in her opinion.
Yeah, it's such a weird time in the area, especially Mecklenburg County, where we have so many people moving in a day. I know that we always have that tagline of 50, but I think that's gone up from
150 something.
Yeah. So we have more and more people moving into the area, but we already have an existing population that the cost of living is going up. Property taxes may go up. It's just so many things. So I just want to point that out. It's a weird time for a lot of folks here.
Yeah, and a lot of things that are out of the control of city government too. Like I said, state still doesn't have a budget, and so some of these things that could be helped out by, like I said, state or federal governments, they are dealing with their other fish to fry at the moment, and so Charlotte kind of has to rely on their own budget for some of those things at this point.
Julie K. I was going to say your middle name, but I'm not going to do it. Julie K. Covering all things politics. I'm not going to do Julie like that. When can folks catch you this evening?
We're going to have a preview with some of that interview with Ms. Ashmira at 4 p.m. today. And then the full interview will be at 9 p.m. on Monday on our next episode of Flashpoint. Yeah,
make sure you catch that on WCNC Plus, Flashpoint, 9 p.m. here on WCNC Plus. Thank you, Julie, for your time covering all things politics. All right, let's take a quick break. We'll be back here in just 2 minutes here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. Welcome back here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturdivant. We want to head back to Baltimore, Maryland. We're happening right now. The Key Bridge Commemoration Press Conference event ceremony is happening. We heard from Governor Westmore earlier, and we're hearing from other elected officials, city officials. Let's take a listen in.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Today we reflect and remember the moment that changed Maryland. We remember the victims and their families. We remember the first responders from near and far who showed up 2 years ago and returned day after day. Today we thank Governor Moore for his steadfast leadership on navigating Maryland through troubled waters and showcasing the Port of Baltimore's resilience. We also thank all of our local, state, federal, and private partners. Together, we are showing the world that Maryland can accomplish great results when we work with each other. The collaboration between everyone, including our fantastic federal delegation, many of whom are not here today because they're in Congress voting, has only grown stronger with the passing days and months. The Maryland Transportation Authority and Executive Director Bruce Gartner have done a tremendous job getting the project ready for construction, and as you hear in the background, the sounds of progress. We are working at breakneck speed to rebuild the Key Bridge and make the region whole again. As the new bridge begins to emerge from the Patapsco River, the Maryland Department of Transportation is committed to engaging with the communities and providing commuters with relief across the region. We know the Key Bridge will rise again to serve as Baltimore's gateway, and it will also be a bridge to our future. Thank you so much. Now it is my distinguished honor to welcome one of Maryland's finest first responders, who led his team through the tragedy and whose officers saved lives that night. Please welcome MDTA Police Chief Colonel Joseph Scott.
Good afternoon. To the Honorable Governor Westmore, thank you. 2 years ago, Marylanders awakened to the news that the Francis Scott Key Bridge had collapsed. And in that awakening, they also had fear and doubt and fear of the unknown. And what Governor Moore became, he became that very light in the dark place. He also became the peace in the midst of the storm. So for that, sir, I thank you. I'm truly honored to stand here today and speak on behalf of the first responders. 2 years ago, our state experienced something we've never experienced before. The collapse of the Francis Scott Key Bridge was not just a headline, it was personal. It affected people, family, and all who served the community. Today we pause to remember those who were lost, but also to honor the resilience, unity, and strength that followed. On that day, lives were impacted, families were changed, communities were shaken, and a vital piece of infrastructure, something that connected people, commerce, and opportunity, was gone. But in the face of that devastating time, something powerful emerged. First responders came from far and wide. Different agencies with different roles, without hesitation. No one stopped to ask the question, why? People showed up ready to serve. I remember how the focus was on the people who were on the bridge. Every decision was about doing everything possible to protect and save lives. There was urgency, without a doubt, but there was also a deep level of care behind everything we did. I remember the teamwork, people who were working side by side, hand in hand, who had never met each other before. There was a trust, communication, a shared understanding that we were all in this together. And I will never forget the support from the communities, the messages, the outreach, community members showing up at police headquarters. It reminded us as first responders of why we do what we do. For the first responders community, this was more than an operational challenge. It was a test of who we are. We defined it with humanity and how we cared for those who were impacted and how we cared for one another. We defined it with skill and how we responded, stayed focused, and did our job. And we defined it with grace during one of the most difficult moments that we had ever faced. Over the past 2 years, we have strengthened coordination across agencies and remained focused on serving people, because this moment reminded us of something very important. Our infrastructure is not just steel and concrete, but it represents connections, livelihoods, and trust. And trust is something we can continue to build on each and every day. So today, we come to remember, but we also understand we have a responsibility. We continue to protect and serve and to show up for each other and the people who count on us every day. But on that day, first responders, we became one. And for that reason, I pray that we never, ever forget that day. Thank you. And at this time, I would like to introduce Maryland Port Administration Deputy Executive Director, Mr. Brian Miller.
Thank you, Colonel Scott. Governor, thank you for your leadership during the hardship and time that we went through. Much appreciated, sir. On behalf of Executive Port Director Jonathan Daniels, who is currently on the road right now securing more business for the Port of Baltimore, I appreciate the opportunity to be here today to represent the Maryland Port Administration and the Port of Baltimore. I join everyone in remembering the 6 men who lost their lives 2 years ago. When the dolly slammed into the Francis Scott Key Bridge in the early morning hours of March 26th, we had no idea how long the Port of Baltimore would be impacted. Our main shipping channel was blocked for 11 weeks, and ships that were destined to come to Baltimore to bring business to our state, to support tens and thousands of jobs, were instead diverted to other ports. 2 years later, we continue to feel the impact of this tragedy. But thanks to Governor Moore's leadership and the overall resiliency of our port partners, ILA longshoremen, truckers, and the overall supply chain, we're making great strides in our recovery. Happy to say that just last year, we set a new record for the largest number of containers to come through the Port of Baltimore, our second best year for handling cargo, which is a testament to the port community after what we went through. The Port of Baltimore will continue to progress forward in its recovery and more than ever support its mission of generating jobs, well-paying jobs, in Maryland through waterborne commerce. Thank you, and I turn it back over now to the Governor of the greatest state in the country, Maryland.
I'm so sorry. It's okay. It's okay.
So you talked about building this bridge fast and safely and whatnot, but there are some people in the community who say that it's going too fast, and they wanted the design to incorporate what they call 21st century things like bike lanes. And I was just wondering if you could speak to those concerns.
Thank you so much. Should I repeat the question? Okay. So thank you for the question, and it's a concern that people are saying that we are building fast, but some people are saying that we're building too fast, that there are other things that we want to be able to get done, and they want us to kind of slow the process down. I genuinely understand the concern, and one thing that I'm very proud of this entire team, that we are working in very close coordination with the community, working in very close coordination with the communities that are the most directly impacted, communities like Dundalk and Turner Station. And we also know that speed and efficiency and intentionality and safety are still the priorities. That the promise that we made to the people of Maryland, the promise that we made to the people of this country, and the promise that we made to Congress, who authorized the 100% cost share that we now have with Congress, is that we are going to make this the fastest moving large project in this country, and we plan on standing by that. We know that the build that we are doing is a cable stay bridge, and that cable stay bridge, which was highlighted earlier, the importance of doing the design and the build at the same time, was that we know this bridge is going to be a bridge that is going to meet all safety requirements for 2026. We know that this is going to be a bridge that will be able to withstand the type of ships and the size and the enormity of the ships that are now moving, which are different than the size of the ships that we saw back when this bridge was completed in 1977. But the commitment that we have is that we are going to do something with a speed that this moment requires, and also, frankly, a speed that the Port of Baltimore requires. That this is one of the core arteries to one of the most important ports in this country, and so we have a fundamental, not just commitment, but an obsession to make sure that we get this done in partnership with community, but get it done quickly, efficiently, and safely. Absolutely. I'll take it initially, and then Madam Secretary, if you want to, or Bruce after that. So the decision to do a design build was really about how do we focus on speed and cost effectiveness. But one thing that we knew was that we had to be able to move quickly. So we worked in partnership with our federal partners. We were able to cut the red tape and streamline the process, where it is true that getting to a 70% design build can take up to 5 to 7 years. This extraordinary team got it done in 14 months. And so there's been a historic speed that we've been able to move at, but we have not at all had to compromise safety. We've not at all had to compromise design within that process, because those were tantamount to anything else that was happening.
Good afternoon, Bruce Gartner, Executive Director of MDTA. On the progressive design build model, it's a very safe model. The design build has been around for a long time in the country. What the engineers were able to do here is work closely on that design with the contracting team, so they know what is going in the riverbed here, starting from the ground up. So you have a lot of decisions, early decisions made. You lock those in, you keep going. So that is how this project has progressed. That's why you're seeing early works in the river right now before we finalize that.
All right, so that is the Key Bridge commemoration ceremony happening there in Baltimore, Maryland. We're hearing from elected officials, including Governor Westmore, also city and state officials from Maryland and the Baltimore area. Let's take a quick break. We'll be back here in just 2 minutes here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. Welcome back here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturtevant. All right, some of the biggest names in the Republican Party are in the Dallas-Fort Worth area for the annual Conservative Political Action Conference that is underway there. Let's take you there now. That is to your right. That is Michael Whatley. He is running for U.S. Senate in North Carolina, the Republican nominee running against Democratic nominee, former Governor Roy Cooper. But let's take a listen in.
That Chairman Michael Whatley and Chris LaCivita did along with Susie Wiles at the RNC. This man, I've told him this, I want to say it publicly. It was like every time we asked for something in President Trump's 2 previous campaigns, I can't tell you how many times, no, we can't do that. This man next to me, he never said no to us. Everything was always yes for Donald Trump. So God bless Michael Whatley.
Well, thank you for that. And I'll tell you what, one of the biggest reasons that we wanted to make sure that the RNC was going to be there for President Trump is because we saw elections have consequences. You think about the switch that we saw the very first time Donald Trump came down the escalator. And he said, I'm going to make America great again. It wasn't just a campaign slogan he borrowed from Ronald Reagan. It was a plan. We are going to rebuild our economy. We are going to restore our borders and keep our communities safe, and we are going to make absolutely sure that America is strong and respected again around the world. That's why I joined his campaign in 2015, and we see every single day right now the fact that he is winning, and America is absolutely getting better every single day because he is keeping those promises that he has made since he first came down the escalator in 2015.
Amen. Amen. And then some. The other thing is this, and I think it's why it's so important that we have Chairman Whatley here. I still like to call him Chairman Whatley, even though he might be running his race, where he's running in North Carolina, could very well be the most important U.S. Senate race in the country this year. If we don't keep his seat, we may lose the majority. And we all know how bad that's going to be, to lose the majority. He has to win. But all the great things he did at the RNC, whether it was ballot security, whether it was raising money, going out there recruiting grassroots candidates, and giving us the resources we needed to do to run an effective campaign for President Trump, he was able to do all of that.
You know, and when you look at elections, good policy is good politics,
without a doubt.
And President Trump's agenda is really true the agenda that's driving us right now. When you think about states like Maine with Susan Collins, you think about Ohio with John Huston, you think about Texas here, we've got a primary, we've got a runoff, but we know that we're going to be able to hold that seat. You look at Iowa, you look at Kentucky, you look at Michigan and Mike Rogers up there. Every single one of these battleground states, the Republicans are running on an America First agenda. We're running on President Trump's agenda. My agenda is to create an economy that's going to work better for North Carolina. It is to make sure that we're keeping our kids and our communities safe. It is that we have 100,000 men and women in uniform in North Carolina, in all 5 branches. When it comes to keeping American interests and our allies safe around the world, North Carolina is going to be the tip of the spear. But that's the case in every other one of these battleground states. And the Democrats who ran in 24, their agenda was open borders, inflationary spending, and a woke, weak America. They are doubling down on that in every single House race and every single Senate race across the country right now. They are doubling down on stupid, and the voters are not going to go there.
And I think we have the ability in these midterm elections, and by the way, I was doing the polling back in 2002 at the RNC and also for the NRCC. I worked for Chairman Tom Davis back then. When was the last time we defied history, we actually picked up seats during the first midterm. Normally what happens over the last 50 years, the history says you lose 25 to 30 seats. But I'm not going to be happy, especially when it comes to the Senate, not only that we keep the Senate, but we need to pick up seats. And I think several seats we can actually have a shot at picking up.
Agreed.
I think we can pick up New Hampshire. I think we can pick up Georgia. By the way, John Ossoff, the crazy liberal who tries to pretend he's a moderate, You know what he said the first thing he's going to do when the Democrats, if they, God forbid, get a majority in the U.S. Senate? You know what he wants to do? Impeach Donald Trump. That's not moderate. That's how crazy they are. And look at one of the lessons we learned from the 25 elections. You look at Mikey Sherrill, the governor of New Jersey. You look at Abigail Spanberger, the governor of Virginia. How did they run? They told us they were moderates. They lied. We see what they're doing. Mikey Sherrill doing sanctuary city stuff. By the way, she's raising property taxes. Abigail Spanberger, she's talked about raising over 100 new taxes. Plus, she's doing that crazy radical redistricting where she's going to try to redistrict out 4 Republican members of Congress.
And Roy Cooper is an absolutely card-carrying member of the woke mob, and he's going to portray himself as a moderate. He's going to tell you that he wants to work across the aisle. The fact is that Roy Cooper vetoed more legislation, more bills, than every other governor in the history of North Carolina combined. This is a guy who is never seen a dollar that he didn't want to tax and spend. I've never seen, by the way, a tax I didn't want to cut. Yeah. This is a guy who is the most soft-on-crime governor in the history of North Carolina. Yeah. This is a guy who vetoed legislation to tell sheriffs they need to honor ICE detainers and get criminals the hell out of North Carolina. This is a guy who on every single 80-20 issue is on the 20% side with the radical Democrats. And he's made it clear. When he announced that he was running, he said that he would have voted against the One Big Beautiful Bill, because he wants you to be paying taxes on overtime and tips and Social Security, because he wanted you to be able to have to pay the biggest tax hike in American history. This is a guy who let 3,500 hardened criminals out of prison in North Carolina because he didn't want them to get COVID. He took that list. He hid it under court order. He sealed it. And he promised the people of North Carolina, none of these are violent criminals. You know what? We got that list a month ago. He lied. Yeah. He lied to the people of North Carolina. 51 of them were serving life sentences. 65 committed murder. One of them got rearrested and re-released 13 more times before he got on a Charlotte light rail last summer and murdered a beautiful Ukrainian lady named Irina Zarovska. Murdered her in cold blood. And you know what? Her blood is on Roy Cooper's hands, because he should have never been on the streets and he should have never been on that light rail car. Yeah. We need to do better in North Carolina. We need to make sure that we have a champion for the conservative cause. We need to make sure that we have an ally for Donald Trump in the United States Senate. That's what I'm going to be when I beat Roy Cooper and permanently end his career. Yep.
Like I said, Chairman Whatley's race may be the most important in the country. It's not we sort of have to win it, we have to win it. And I'll tell you, the other thing is this, and you and I have talked about this. One of the reasons we didn't do great, quite frankly, back in 2018 during the first President Trump midterm was because 11 million Trump voters stayed home during the midterms. This is huge, by the way, because when you look at the congressional races, I think it's 28 out of the 39 kind of battleground districts that both parties are looking at. Donald Trump won in the 24 election. The Democratic base, the crazy left, the Marxists that Benny was just talking about, they are motivated. The Zoran Mandanis, and by the way, the Democrats are nominating a whole bunch of new Zoran Mandanis in these primaries, and we're going to have some huge advantages there. But I've always told President Trump, the first time he came back to CPAC after he left office, I told him that's when I knew we were going to win in 24. Because I knew how motivated the people were in this room, and they went back home, they went back to Washington State and New York, California, the battleground states, and they went and spread the message. We need to do that again. We cannot be complacent. These are, as the president said last night, these are the most important midterm elections in our lifetime. And oh, by the way, we all have to be in.
We absolutely do. You know, when I took over the RNC, I sat down, I had breakfast with President Trump. And after a couple minutes of chit chat, he looked me straight in the eye. He said, all right, Michael, what's the plan?
Yeah.
How are we going to win? And I told him, we are going to do two things, and only two things. We are going to get out the vote, and we are going to protect the ballot. We talked for about 20, 30 minutes about what it meant to get out the vote and how we were going to motivate people who had Trump signs in their yard or Trump stickers on their truck, but they hadn't registered to vote, or they hadn't voted in 4 years or 6 years or 8 years. We were going to get them to go vote early. We were going to get them to vote by mail. We were going to get them there on Election Day. We spent about 20 minutes talking about election integrity and the fact that I was going to build and did the first ever national election integrity program at the RNC and make sure that we were going to stop the steal.
Yep.
And that is how we were able to win that election cycle in 24. We need to do the same thing. And we need you. And we need every person who pays attention in this election cycle. We need every conservative, every Republican, every patriot across this country to focus on two things: get out the vote and protect the ballot. And when we get that done, we are going to be able to expand this majority in the House. We'll expand our majorities in the Senate. And we will make absolutely sure that Donald Trump is going to get a 4-year term, not a 2-year term,
Yep.
because if the Democrats win again, like they did in 18, it is impeachments, it is hoaxes, it is investigations, and it is an agenda that is off the rails. Elections have consequences, and this is, as John just said, the most important midterm that we've ever had in our country. And we cannot let the woke mob, we cannot let the left win this election cycle and take away this agenda that we're fighting for every single day.
Thank you. And one last thing, I'm not going to be happy if we just keep the majorities. We need to increase the majorities. And one more thing, make sure you vote in the CPAC straw poll. It's at the top of the app, literally right at the top. Let your voice know who you prefer in the 28 presidential primary, plus a lot of other issues in there. Thank you. We appreciate it.
All right, so that is the CPAC USA 2026 conference that's underway. You just heard from Michael Whatley, running for U.S. Senate here in North Carolina, the Republican nominee. All right, let's come back out here and let's head to break. We'll be back here in just 2 minutes here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. All right, welcome back here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Thurday. All right, so organizers across the Charlotte area are planning demonstrations Saturday as part of the latest No Kings protests, a growing series of rallies aimed at opposing President Donald Trump and his administration. So we will have crews covering different rallies across our area as part of the No Kings protest, and we will keep you covered. We'll be here covering this. Julie Kay will be in this seat on Saturday all day covering the protests as long as they last here on WCNC Plus. So earlier today, we actually heard from organizers of the No Kings protest in a virtual press conference. Let's take a listen in.
To come together with millions of others for No Kings on Saturday. Our members will be turning out peacefully in the streets because they believe in a better future for this country, and they can't sit by on the sidelines about what Trump and his administration are doing to our home. Let's be clear. The Trump administration has become a threat to the American people at every level. They are waging violence at home and abroad. They spent $25 billion and counting on a war that nobody wants and that Congress has not authorized. They spent billions sending masked ICE agents to terrorize our communities and kill people. And now they're sending these same rogue agents to airports across the country and instilling fear in travelers everywhere. Where's the money for people struggling to afford their rent, groceries, gas, or health care? Where is the money for the TSA workers who haven't received a paycheck in weeks? Here's the thing. The Trump administration made a terrible miscalculation that we would cower and capitulate in response to their chaos and cruelty, that we would put up with our health care getting slashed, with gas prices and utility bills going through the roof, while they shower billionaires in tax cuts. Americans are no fools. A president and a government that prioritized our safety and our futures would invest in our people. That's why millions of us are rising up from all walks of life, from rural communities to big cities at No Kings. And as we do so, we will send the loudest, clearest message yet that this country does not belong to kings, dictators, tyrants. It belongs to us. And together, we have the power to build the country we dream of. And now I'm pleased to introduce Naveed Shah, a U.S. Army veteran and the political director at Common Defense.
Thanks, Katie. Good morning, everybody. My name is Naveed Shah. I'm the political director with Common Defense, and I'm honored to be here with you today. When I stood at the first No Kings rally, we were fighting to protect democracy at home and against federal agents and troops that were deployed on American streets, against a government that was manufacturing a crisis to justify using its power against its own people. Today, we're still fighting that same fight, but now that manufactured crisis has gone global. This illegal war with Iran is built on the same lies as the one with Iraq 20 years ago. I know because I lived it as an Army veteran who served in Iraq. Me and my friends know that our leaders lied to us into a war with no strategy and no end game. I swore an oath to this Constitution, not to a king, not to a politician, and I will not stay silent while we march down that same road into another forever war. Let me be clear about where we stand right now. 13 American service members have been killed, approximately 140 more have been wounded, and thousands across the Middle East have been killed, wounded, or displaced already, and this war is only 4 weeks old. There is no exit strategy, there is no plan for what comes next, and there are reports that boots on the ground are coming, which every veteran in this crowd knows means one thing: another quagmire in the Middle East with no end in sight. This war was not authorized by Congress, it was not even debated, and polling shows that you, the American people, do not want it. It's costing us more than $1 billion per day. The White House is now asking for $200 billion more. $200 billion. Let that sink in. That's Medicaid coverage for families where a diagnosis is away from bankruptcy. That's housing for veterans who are sleeping on the streets. That's childcare for working parents who can't afford to go back to work. That's community college for kids who just want a shot at the future. That's money for the people of this country. Instead, it is being funneled into a war no one voted for under a commander-in-chief who believes that his power is absolute. But in America, we have no kings. We saw that truth with the first No Kings. We saw it at the second. And today we're saying it louder than ever because the stakes are higher than ever. What started as a fight against troops on American streets has become a fight against an administration that will deploy force anywhere, at home or abroad, to distract from the fact that everyday Americans are still having to make impossible choices at the gas station, at the grocery store, and at the kitchen table, wondering how they're going to make it to the end of the month. They want us distracted by the spectacle, but we're focused on the people. And while they're posting meme videos glorifying this war, and the Secretary of Defense is talking about giving no quarter to our enemies, I need every person watching to understand what this means to the men and women actually serving. Those words and those videos don't make us look cool or strong. They put a bigger target on our troops. If we declare no quarter, then the enemy has no reason to treat our troops humanely, such as pilots who get shot down behind enemy lines, which is real because we've already had several air assets downed in the region. They put a bullseye on every service member downrange. That's not leadership. That's not support for the troops. That's reckless. It's dangerous, and veterans across this country are taking note. We didn't serve this country so it could be handed over to one man's ego. We served because we believe in something bigger. A government of the people, by the people, for the people. A constitution that means something. A democracy that's worth defending. That's what No Kings is all about. That's what all of you are. A people-powered movement that refuses to be props, refuses to be silent, and refuses to quit. So here's our ask. Show up on Saturday. If you haven't already, RSVP for your local No Kings event right now. There's over 3,000 of them. There's definitely one near you. The link is in your hands. It's on your website. There's no excuse not to be there and every reason to be there. Bring your neighbors, bring your family, bring anyone who has ever believed that this country belongs to its people. We need you out there peacefully and powerfully this Saturday. This is not the end of our republic. We keep going. And with that, I want to pass it to Deirdre Schiefling of the ACLU.
Thank you so much, Naveen. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I'm Deirdre Schiefling. I'm the Chief Political and Advocacy Officer for the ACLU. The ACLU is proud to stand with this coalition to bring the public together for the most patriotic and American thing we can do, peacefully and lawfully protesting to protect our democracy and our rights. The best way to protect our freedom is to act free. We do not recognize a country where masked, unidentified men violently kidnap people off the street, where ICE agents shoot and kill peaceful protesters with impunity, where the president bombs other countries with no authorization and acts as if Congress is a nice to have, not a must have branch of government. I don't recognize it. And the unprecedented scale of protests we will see on Saturday demonstrates that the American people don't recognize it either. And we do not accept it. We are fed up. We are fed up with the president using ICE as his personal police force for furthering his political agenda. We are fed up with the violent and inhumane treatment of our immigrant neighbors. Fed up with the president trying to do away with birthright citizenship. Fed up with this president's repeated abuses of power to punish and silence anyone who disagrees with him. Fed up with attacks on our voting rights. Fed up with our own government being weaponized against us. A democracy is ruled by the demos, the people. We elect our representatives to represent us, not to rule over us. Apparently, President Trump didn't get the memo. This No Kings protest will make sure he does. It is our right and our duty to challenge these unprecedented threats to our rights and liberties and defend the future of our country. And it works. Whenever we stand up to President Trump's abuses of power, like most bullies, he backs down. We saw it when we held protests after the president's illegal deployment of the National Guard to intimidate protesters in Los Angeles. He backed down. We saw it when we held massive protests after ICE murdered Renee Good and Alex Preddy in Minneapolis. He backed down. And we will see it again on Saturday when millions come out again. It is our responsibility to continue to resist. Peaceful resistance is the antidote to repression, and it's the antidote to the despair and powerlessness that repression is trying to make us feel. We are powerful together. We are powerful when we use our freedom, when we act free. So we will be on the ground in all 50 states on Saturday. In 3,000 different towns, cities, neighborhoods, we will be loud, proud, joyful, and determined in defense of our rights, in defense of our democratic country. No Kings is more than a single day of protest. It's a growing movement of people determined to act free, to be free, to stay free. See you in the streets on Saturday. And with that, I will now pass it to Sarah Parker with 5051 and the Voices of Florida Fund.
Thank you so much. Hi, my name is Sarah Parker. I am the 5051. I'm one of the 5051 national coordinators, and I am also the executive director of Voices of Florida Fund. I want to start off by naming how incredibly important this moment is. Since the last No Kings, we're seeing higher gas prices and groceries, all while there's an illegal war in Iran. We've also seen our neighbors executed, American citizens executed, and our children carrying the burden of owning their own power and walking out of school in defiance. The people of America are pissed. They are the ones demanding for No Kings. They are the ones powering this movement, and this movement is owned by them and driven by them. I want to be crystal clear that these people are not just showing up because they're angry. They're showing up most importantly because of love, disciplined and real love, love for their neighbor, their community, and most importantly as a mother, love for their children. Anyone who says that this movement is not powered by love or the people, they're using smoke and mirrors and trying to change the narrative with played out talking points. The people that are mobilizing on March 28th are refusing to cede ground to an authoritarian because they love their country. Let me give you some numbers. We've officially surpassed our previous records in reach and are currently tracking over 2,200 non-urban events across 2,100 unique cities. Places like Arizona are creating an 8-mile-long protest from Tucson to Oro Valley and making a visible corridor of democracy. These leaders are putting their communities first when the administration refuses to and have been trained in de-escalation. They know that discipline breeds power and power breeds change. They have been working around the clock to create a safe, nonviolent, and disciplined event. March 28th, we will once again take the streets by the millions and demand No Kings in America and demand a free and fair democracy. And most importantly, demand the American dream that we were all promised. Thank you so much. Next up, I'm going to go ahead and introduce Lisa Gilbert from Public Citizen.
Thanks so much for those inspiring words, Sarah, and that introduction, and welcome everyone. Before I jump in, I just want to encourage anyone with us today who has questions to stick them in the Q&A box. We will try to get to them when we are done. So as Sarah said, I'm Lisa Gilbert. I'm co-president of Public Citizen. Public Citizen's mission on behalf of our million-plus members is to fight corporate power and preserve our democracy. And I couldn't be more excited than being here today with all of these incredible speakers talking about the critical inflection point that is coming at us this weekend. This is our chance to say no to the lawlessness, to the cruelty that is being perpetrated by our very own wannabe dictator, Donald Trump. It's our chance to say no to a president that has been consistently abusing his power. He's sending masked agents into our streets and now our airports. He is terrorizing our communities, and he's detaining people without warrants. He's threatening to overtake our elections and trying to make voting more difficult and rigging electoral maps to try and silence dissent. He's spending billions of our tax dollars on missile strikes abroad in support of an illegal and unauthorized war. And he has just taken overall lawlessness to a new level, from political prosecutions embarked upon by his clearly non-independent DOJ, to the arrest of a sitting member of Congress just for performing her oversight role, to the militarization of all of our cities without cause, to court defiance, to attacks on sitting judges, the media, universities, nonprofits. Unfortunately, this list is kind of endless. And this is all, of course, in addition to the blatant corruption that we have seen as we've watched Trump and his family cash in on the presidency, adding billions to their own wealth. But No Kings is about the fight, and we are fighting back. back. The Trump regime, what they want to do is intimidate opponents. They want to chill dissent. They want to silence us. They want us to be scared and isolated. But we are instead joining together in overwhelming numbers to speak out against authoritarianism and these abuses of power. As others have said, we are seeing staggering numbers of No Kings events across the country, but particularly notable and worth mentioning are the many, many rallies planned in red states and the massive surges of RSVPs in suburban areas. This is the definition of a groundswell. No matter where these events are located, these protests are nonviolent. They're disciplined. They will be grounded in solidarity. And this is really what the administration is scared of, our unity in this moment. And that's what we're going to show them in droves this Saturday. Our courage, our unity, our conviction, and that we will not suffer kings in America. So with that, I'm thrilled to hand it to the next speaker, the incredible Randy Weingarten, president of the American Federation of Teachers.
Unmute. Thank you, Lisa, so much. And, there's something about going close to last because you can just say ditto, ditto, ditto to everything everybody has said. Let me just start by this. Very early on, when No King started, people said, this is a democracy. What are you talking about? We don't have a king. Donald Trump was elected as president. The Congress was elected. But look what is happening. Every single time the people are saying, this is what we need. What is happening with this administration? One of our speakers said it already. $1 billion a day for this war. And yet we couldn't find the money for the Obamacare tax credits. Then now we're seeing a huge increase in premium payments that people have had to pay. We couldn't find the money for Medicaid that is closing rural hospitals all over America. We couldn't find the money for SNAP when people were having parties at Mar-a-Lago. The people are saying we need to find a way to support ourselves. We don't want a war that's costing billions of dollars. We don't want a war that is increasing the cost of gas. We don't want a debate that is actually making the lines of TSA, like the line I had this morning, hours long. People in America are saying you have been elected to help us and our families have a better life, not to help the billionaires, not to create robots as teachers, not to just create ways that you and your family get rich, Donald Trump. And that's why more and more people see him as a king, as opposed to someone who is listening to the people of America saying simply, I need a better life for myself and my families. You were elected to do that. And so what No Kings is about, and you hear it, it doesn't matter whether we're fighting against or for voting rights or fighting for immigrant rights or fighting for our neighbors or fighting to make sure that we can make ends meet for our kids and our families. We're saying that we, the people, make that decision in a democracy, not a king, not a monarch, not a crown, not a throne that is making these decisions for us without even listening to us. That is the essence of how this movement operates. Cross-coalition, cross-faith, cross-race, cross-geography, cross-demography, because we're sending a message that says it's the people in America that make decisions about America. That's what a democracy is. And it's the people of America who want dignity and respect and economic security. So my members, educators and nurses across the country, are going to be out there everywhere on Saturday. And we're asking every one of you If you care about this country, if you care about immigrants, if you care about our neighbors, if you care about strangers, if you care about kids, if you care about vets, if you care about our military, if you care about voting, if you care about the future, join us on Saturday to say, we the people want a government that befits freedom and opportunity and fairness. That's why we're calling for no kings and no thrones and no crowns. Thank you. And I'm going to pass it to a colleague, dear colleague of mine forever, Reverend Al Sharpton.
Thank you, Randy. And let me say, as president of the National Action Network, we as a civil rights organization will be out in force with our chapters and affiliates all over the country, because the threat to any of us is a threat to all of us. The civil rights movement, of which I grew up, had to fight to get voting rights. Women had to fight to get the right to vote. The irony is that this president, who wants to be treated as a king, wants to celebrate the 250th anniversary of the country on July 4th. Well, on July 4th, some of us, in July 4th, 1776, some of us were slaves. Women couldn't vote. Women got the right to vote because we fought, because we marched. Blacks got the right to vote. Bloodshed, interracial bloodshed. Goodman, Cheney, and Swerner, 2 Jews and a black, died to protect our right to vote. The sitting president, the wannabe king, is saying that he will not sign legislation unless you pass a bill that would in many ways impede that right to vote. So it is not.
All right, so that's that virtual press conference from earlier. Let's take a step away and let's head to break. We'll be back here in just 2 minutes here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. Welcome back here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sertivant. We want to get you back to that No Kings virtual press conference that happened earlier today. The Reverend Al Sharpton speaking. Let's take a listen in.
there. We have other civil rights groups joining, unions, and just regular people. Because if we don't protect our rights, we will not even have the capacity to debate whatever it is we may agree or disagree with. I'm on the road right now going to do a eulogy at another police victim's case. But I want police to march with us because it's not about what we are against, it's about what we are for. And we are for the right to express ourselves, even if we don't agree with each other on a particular issue. So Saturday is imperative. It is mandatory. One day your children will ask, where were you when a man tried to become king, when so many gave their lives, shed blood, and gave their income up to give this democracy to where it is. And now it is under serious threat. We are sitting in a nation that is saying we want $200 billion to deal with Iran. We want to do change of the hierarchy and the government in Venezuela, while they are really trying to change government in the United States. Some of us are saying we cannot do that. We cannot allow that. You can finance wars around the world to change for regime change, but you will not have regime change in the United States. And that's why by the millions, we're all going to be out on Saturday. So I urge you to do it. I urge you in the name of those civil rights leaders that before me that paved the way, and I'm standing and marching for them. But you that come from different silos, different traditions, all of us are going to come together and stand together on Saturday and say no king. Not now, not on our watch. Now I'm proud to bring you Edwin Torres de Santiago from the Minneapolis Immigrant Defense Fund. Let us hear Edwin.
Thank you so much, Reverend Al Sharpton. Good morning, everyone. My name is Edwin Torres de Santiago, and I lead the Immigrant Defense Network, the largest coalition of over 100 organizations protecting immigrant rights in Minnesota and in the upper Midwest. Right now, across Minnesota, and across this country, immigrant families are living in fear that something as simple as going to work or taking their children to school could separate them from their loved ones. That is the reality. A mother texting her child just to say, I made it. A father calling in the middle of the day to just say, I'm okay. I know this because it's exactly what both of my parents do every single day. For 25 years, I lived without documentation, and my parents still do. And let's be clear about what is happening. You don't send mask agents into neighborhoods, into airports, into communities to keep people safe. You send them to keep people terrified. And that fear is not accidental. It is part of our larger escalation, and we're already seeing the consequences. We've seen the consequences. Keith Porter Jr., Renee Good, Alex Preddy, Dr. Linda Davis, Ruben Ray Martinez, and dozens of others that have been killed by this administration's escalation. And let's not forget the 40 deaths inside detention centers since this administration has taken office. Silence and inactions are not an option anymore. In Minnesota, when tragedy struck, our communities did not disappear. We showed up. They showed up. They protected each other. We protected each other. We marched by the thousands. And through that, the Immigrant Defense Network has grown into something powerful. We have trained over 33,000 constitutional observers, everyday people ready to document, to witness, and to defend each other. That is what people power looks like. And this Saturday, millions of people across this country will come together to say, enough. Enough fear, enough harm, enough abuse of power. Because power does not come from intimidation. Power comes from the people. And let me now speak directly to our Spanish-speaking community. Y ahora quiero hablar directamente con nuestra comunidad latina. Soy Edwin Torres. el director de la Red Defensa de Inmigrantes acá en el estado de Minnesota, a las familias que están viviendo con miedo todos los días, a las madres que no saben si van a regresar a la casa, a los padres que salen a trabajar con el corazón en la mano, los vemos, los sentimos y estamos con ustedes. Sabemos lo que se siente vivir con ese miedo. El miedo de una puerta tocada por un agente de ICE, el miedo de una llamada que cambia su vida, el miedo de no saber si mañana todo seguirá igual. Pero quiero que escuchen con toda claridad. No están solos. No están solos en Minnesota, no están solos en el país y no están solos en esta lucha. Porque en este momento estamos construyendo algo poderoso, una red, una comunidad, un movimiento. La línea de defensa de inmigrantes no solo es una organización, es una línea de defensa, de protección, es de comunidad organizada. Somos miles de personas, más de 33,000 observadores constitucionales listos para protegernos a nosotros, listos para documentar injusticias, porque cuando intentan gobernar con miedo, respondemos con unidad. Este sábado millones de personas van a salir a las calles, no con violencia, sino con dignidad, con fuerza, con el poder de saber que estamos juntos. No hay fuerza más grande que nosotros. Y juntos vamos a resistir, juntos vamos a avanzar y juntos vamos a ganar. Gracias. Thank you. Now I have the honor of introducing Leah Greenberg, Co-Executive Director of the Indivisible Project.
Thank you, Edwin. Thank you, everyone. It is great to be here with you. Just one more reminder to use the Q&A function to ask any questions that you've got. All right. From illegal wars to masked and violent agents in our streets to driving up costs for everyday families, this administration's actions are angering not just Democratic voters or folks in big blue city centers. They are crossing a line for people in red and rural areas in the suburbs all over the country. The defining story of this Saturday's mobilization is not just how many people are protesting, but where they are protesting. Our data shows 2/3, 66% of RSVPs coming from outside of major urban centers. This is up nearly 40% from the first No Kings Day of Action last June. Idaho, Wyoming, Montana, Utah are all showing up with events in the double digits. We are seeing in Republican leaders' own backyards powerful pushback. There are 11 No Kings events in both Senator John Thune's state of South Dakota and in Rep. Mike Johnson's state of Louisiana. We're seeing huge RSVP surges in highly competitive bellwether suburban areas like Bucks in Delaware County in Pennsylvania, East Cobb and Forsyth in Georgia, Scottsdale and Chandler in Arizona. Voters who decide elections, the people who do the door knocking and the voter registration and all of the work of turning protest into power, they are taking to the streets right now and they are furious. Let's be clear, this administration is panicking. They are scrambling. They are searching for literally anything to distract from their own governing failures. They are escalating with violence at home and abroad because they know that they are flailing. It is no accident they've been quiet on No Kings recently. Last time, they tried to smear the millions of Americans who came out to peacefully and joyfully assert our rights. They realized that just draws attention and to the continued and increasing success of this movement, so they've pulled back. But we will not be silent. We will be louder than ever. And it doesn't end after March 28th. Our third No Kings Day of Action will happen on Saturday, and Trump will still be in the White House. This illegal and unconstitutional war will still be going on. This administration's secret police force will still be terrorizing communities. That is why we see No Kings as not only a powerful day of defiance, but an organizing catalyst to support local organizing everywhere. The people who come out on these days, they get asked to show up on an ongoing basis for ICE Watch, for mutual aid, for defense and support of immigrant communities, for advocacy against this illegal and catastrophic war, for voter registration and all of the work of building power locally. We will continue organizing with them for what comes next. And now I think we will take questions.
Absolutely. So we're going to ask a few questions again. If you haven't yet, you want to ask a question, we will try to get to most of them. There are many questions here, but please feel free to drop those in the Q&A function. The first question for all panelists, and if you are able, please come off camera if you can answer these questions. How are you enacting change outside of the one day of protests? And are there any concrete progress examples you can give, big or small? Why do organizers say this moment is different from past protests? So how are you enacting changes outside of the one day of protests, and how is this different from past protests? So who wants to take that? Leah, do you want to go ahead?
Absolutely. Well, one thing that we think is really important is continuing to emphasize that this is one tactic in a sea of mass defiance that is taking place around the country, and it helps to both build on and fuel so many other approaches. And so we're working with local hosts, people who are organizations, groups, regular people who just got their protests together and are maybe figuring out what's next, to build out plans for how do you keep people engaged after No King. So we'll be talking and pre-planning with the folks who are organizing these all over the country to make sure that these are not only big moments, but also recruitment and absorption events. That, the person who comes to the 50 or 200 person protest in a small town, they get signed up by somebody on a clipboard, and they go to a meeting next week, and they get trained up, and they start to organize in their communities. That's going to look different in different places. It's going to look different based on your local priorities, based on who's leading the charge wherever you are. This isn't intended to be about one organization or one approach, but it is intended to move as many people as possible into ongoing, sustained, in real life activism on their home turf that starts to build and change power in this country.
Anyone else?
Oh, if I can add one additional thing, that's an approach that No Kings has put into action ourselves. Immediately after Alex Preddy's killing in Minnesota, we did a mass ice watch training that reached about 200,000 people in order to continue to make sure that the lessons and the stories of Minnesota were being heard on a national level, and to encourage people to step into ongoing, organized local activism wherever they are. So we are going to continue to use No Kings as a vehicle to support local organizing, as well as to drive these big national days of action.
I would just also just add in, this is Deirdre from the ACLU. One of the ways that people can take action in their own communities is by using the power that we have at the state and municipal level. So governors, state legislatures, mayors, city councils all have a role to play in protecting people's rights in their community. So wherever you live, we, our affiliates, ACLU, along with lots of members from the community, have been working together to pass what we are calling firewalls for freedom. These are laws on the books that protect people's rights, things like privacy rights, things like due process for immigrants in the community, protections for reproductive rights, protections for voting rights. Whatever kinds of rights this administration is threatening, there are ways to protect rights and slow down the attacks at the state and local level. So we really encourage folks to do that wherever you live, and No Kings is a big piece of that.
Yeah, I want to answer what's different between this moment. The last No Kings, this was right before Alex Preddy was executed in broad daylight. Renee Good was executed. It was right before we have TSA at airports. It is right before the fact that we were supposed to have lower grocery prices, I guess, a year ago, and now our grocery prices are higher. People can't even afford to get gas to take their kids to daycare. They can't afford to feed their children. Every single time we have a new No Kings, there's something else happening. It is consistent. We're going down a slippery slope into authoritarianism. So yes, this moment is different. Our neighbors are being executed. This moment is different. We have ICE at airports. This moment is different because there's an illegal war in Iran. This moment is completely different. We are saying No Kings in America for a reason.
Thank you so much. We've had a few questions on where are events. A couple different questions came in, like where are they? The red states? Are they in battleground states? Almost 50% of No Kings events are in either a red state or a battleground area for this year. That's significant. And I know, Lisa, if you want to come in here and add to that.
Yeah, so the stat is impressive. It's meaningful. I think it also just speaks to the universal appeal of what we're trying to accomplish here. This is not a partisan issue. It's actually the most patriotic thing you can do. To stand up and stand together and say that there aren't kings in America is not controversial. We're a democracy. People believe that. And as they've seen what it looks like to be in a nation that's tilting towards authoritarianism, they don't like it. And so what we're seeing at this No Kings is an escalation of what we saw at the prior and the prior before that. More and more people are understanding that this is unacceptable, and no matter where they live, they're choosing to protest for the first time and be together. So, these numbers are amazing, and we expect them to grow as we continue to do this.
I want to get to another question. Many observers have noted that the majority of No Kings participants are over the age of 50. How many No Kings demonstrations are happening at college campuses? And I want to give it to Sarah Parker from 5051, and then if anybody else wants to.
Yeah, as a 33-year-old leader in this movement, I take high offense to that. This is a wildly overblown statement that I'm hearing often, and I want to be clear. We have students in college campuses and universities participating in every state. At 5051, the average organizer is in their 30s. And whether you're 17 or 70 or 85, we are all sharing the same concern. We are pissed about our government. We are upset at the administration. We are upset our neighbors are being executed. We are upset we cannot afford groceries. And we are upset that we're spending billions of dollars on an illegal war. And we are pissed that ICE agents are infiltrating our community. We are trying to save our democracy. As a 33-year-old, when I said the Pledge of Allegiance, and I've said this sign multiple times, I was told about the American dream. So there are other 33-year-olds that are fighting for that American dream that was promised to us.
Anyone else want to get in on this? I want to go to another question here about ICE being present at rallies. It's a very real situation we live in our current state of affairs, that ICE has infiltrated our communities around the country. And I want to give this to Deirdre from ACLU. What has No Kings been doing to prepare for possible interactions with?
Yeah, thank you. So we have been running massive Know Your Rights trainings for folks in advance of each of these No Kings events, and we just did another one a couple days ago, which had tens of thousands of people on it, to really prepare people to feel confident both about their right to protest, which is their constitutional right to peacefully protest, and their rights when they're interacting with ICE. There is a whole series on the ACLU website about this, Know Your Rights, when interacting with ICE. And I will just say something that other speakers have said, which is deploying ICE is an intimidation tactic. That is the purpose of it. This president is trying to use ICE as his own personal enforcement force to intimidate us. We are not going to be intimidated. We are not going to be intimidated. We are going to be safe. We are going to be peaceful. We are going to be free. So yes, know your rights, and also we will not be scared off by this tactic.
Thank you so much. We're going to take one more question.
All right, so that is the No Kings protest press conference that happened earlier today. It happened virtually. We are approaching the top of the hour. And of course, we'll have coverage, as I mentioned earlier, of that No Kings protest on WCNC Plus on Saturday. But stay with us. We have more programming coming up at the top of the hour. Also, stick with us for the news at 4, 5, and 6. And then at 6:30, we have live weather impact, and then live impact news from 7 to 9. Thank you for joining us. Again, stay with us here on live on WCNC Plus. More programming ahead.